Chapter 11 of Judges recounts one of the strangest and most heartbreaking stories found in the book of Judges, and perhaps in all the Old Testament. It's the story of a guy named Jephthah. Now, Jephthah is one of the brothers of a large group of brothers, but he was illegitimate. He was son of Gilead in verse 11, but he was illegitimate, and his brothers, when they grew up, drove him out of the clan, out of the family. So he fled away in verse 3, and he gathered around him some worthless people, had some kind of a gang going on, and he was their leader. And he was, however, a great warrior, according to verse 1. So with his gang of thugs, or whatever they were, he had proven himself in the battlefield. In verse 4, the Ammonites are now fighting against Israel. Israel's trying to find a leader to lead them into battle, and they can't find anybody among their ranks, but they know that Jephthah is a great leader, military leader. And so they ask in verse 6 for him to come and be their chief. And so he decides to do that. Now, he seems to be a very wise man in a lot of ways. And so after verse 11, they make him head. Instead of going straight into battle, Jephthah attempts to negotiate a peace treaty with Ammon. He goes on from about verse 11 down to verse 28, trying to negotiate this peace treaty, saying there's no reason for us to be at war. Let's bury the hatchet, so to speak. And he eventually comes to verse 27, therefore I've not sinned against you, but you are doing me wrong by making war against me. May the Lord, the judge today between the sons of Israel and the sons of Ammon. But the king of the son of Ammon disregarded the message which Jephthah sent him. So there's going to be war, and Jephthah is going to lead them into war. So the Spirit of the Lord comes upon Jephthah in verse 29. Now here's a reminder, and we'll see this more than once in the book of Judges. In the Old Testament, the Lord Spirit did not come upon people when they got saved. Today, by God's grace, the Holy Spirit indwells us at the moment of our conversion, and He lives within us. We are now the temple of the Holy Spirit. As believers, He lives within us. But in the Old Testament, that did not seem to be the case. Instead, the Spirit of God would come upon individuals for a particular task. Samson will be a good example later with might and power. Physically, he came upon Samson. David, the Spirit came upon David at times. And so we have this, the Spirit coming upon people to accomplish something wonderful, something important. And so the Spirit comes upon Jephthah to bring about victory over the Ammonites. Now this is where the story gets tragic. In verse 30, Jephthah made a vow to the Lord and said, if you will indeed give the sons of Ammon into my hands, then it shall be that whatever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the sons of Ammon, it shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering. Now this is a foolish vow. Jephthah says, just as it says, if you'll do this for me, Lord, give us victory, then whatever comes out of my house, first thing coming out, I'll sacrifice to you. Now, I don't know what he was expecting to come out of his house. It is true that in ancient times, often animals, livestock even, might live within the house or the domain of people. So maybe he was expecting a calf or a cow to come out, or lamb, something else. But what came out of his house, unfortunately, was his daughter. Tragic thing. So after he comes home in victory in verse 33, his daughter comes out in verse 34 to meet him with tambourines and with dancing. She was thrilled. She was excited. She was leading other young ladies probably to be celebrating this. And she was his only child, it says in verse 34. But when Jephthah saw that, he believed he had to keep his vow. He says in verse 35, for I have given my word to the Lord and I cannot take it back. So I'm going to sacrifice my daughter because I promised the Lord I would. And his daughter goes along with it. In verses 36 to 40, she allows that to happen, only doesn't push back at all, only asks for 2 months to mourn her death and her virginity. She was not married, never had children. And then apparently he sacrifices her. What a sad thing. What a tragic story. What a foolish thing. Now we find in the book of Hebrews chapter 11 verse 33 that Jethna is considered a man of faith. And so the Lord puts his stamp of approval on Jethna's life. How can he do that when he does something like this? God was against human sacrifice every time it's ever mentioned in the Old Testament. Never did he want any human sacrifice. So this was not in God's will. No matter what Jethna said, this is not what God wanted. This is a foolish vow that he made that was not in consistency with the revelation of God. But he kept it anyway. He was foolish. And yet he's in the Hall of Fame of faith in Hebrews 11. Why? Not because of what he does here, but because of what he had done before. He'd come to the Lord and he asked for the Lord's help, and the Lord led him into battle. He believed the Lord, and the Lord granted him his request because of faith. This is showing that we have a man who is basically a good man, basically a man of faith, who did a very foolish and stupid thing. And I guess we have to remember that you and I, who have the Holy Spirit in our life and the full revelation of God, can sometimes do some awful, foolish things too. And the Lord in his great mercy will forgive us. But this is truly one of the saddest, most heartbreaking stories, most perplexing stories in all the Old Testament.